Have you ever woken up and felt as if the world had quietly dimmed while you were asleep, like someone lowered the volume of life and you're the only one who noticed? It's strange, isn't it? That silent moment when the things that once made your heart rise suddenly fall flat, as if joy itself slipped through your fingers without warning. You look at your life and nothing feels wrong, yet nothing feels right either. It's as though a hidden door inside you has opened, but you don't know what's on the other side. People rarely admit this out loud, but almost everyone reaches a point where life loses its flavor. The music that used to shake your soul becomes just sound. The things you once loved feel distant, almost foreign. Even your own reflection seems unfamiliar, like you're watching a version of yourself that hasn't caught up with who you're becoming. And then comes the terrifying question that echoes inside: what's happening to me? Why doesn't anything move me anymore? Most people try to run from that question. They blame stress, routine, or some invisible flaw in themselves. But deep down, you feel there is something else, something quieter, stranger, and far more profound. A shift that doesn't come from the outside world, but from a part of you that has been waiting for years to be heard. Imagine this moment not as a collapse, but as a threshold, a point in your life where the soul stops whispering and starts speaking clearly, where the old ways of feeling no longer satisfy, not because you are broken, but because you are outgrowing what once comforted you. It is the kind of awakening that Alan Watts often hinted at, the unsettling moment when the inner world rearranges itself before revealing its deeper truth. And if you're here, listening to these words, it's because some part of you already knows that your experience isn't random. Something is shifting, something is calling, something is beginning. But to understand why this emptiness has entered your life and what it's truly preparing you for, you must look at a place most people avoid, a place where the real transformation begins. There comes a moment in life when the world stops making sense the way it used to. Not in a dramatic, catastrophic way, but in the small, silent cracks that appear in your everyday routine. You wake up already tired, not because your body is weak, but because your spirit feels heavy in a way you can't explain. You go through your day like someone walking through fog, able to see the shapes of things, but unable to feel their meaning. And then strange things begin to happen. You start having dreams that feel too vivid, too symbolic to be just dreams. A voice calling your name, a room filled with light, a place you've never been but somehow recognize. You wake up with your heart racing, not out of fear, but because something inside you whispers, this meant something. During quiet moments, while washing dishes, waiting at a stoplight, folding laundry, you feel sudden waves of emotion that make no logical sense. A sadness that doesn't belong to your life. A longing for something you can't name. A sense of déjà vu so strong it freezes you for a moment, as if time itself paused to let you catch up. At night, you lie in bed with your eyes open, staring into the dark, sensing that something is shifting inside you. Not an illness, not stress. Something deeper, something ancient, as if a part of you that had been asleep for years is beginning to stretch, breathe, and open its eyes. Your body, too, begins to speak a language you don't fully understand. Sudden chills with no cold air around. A weight in your chest that comes and goes. A knot in your stomach when you think about certain people or certain choices. A pressure between your eyebrows, like a quiet pulse, as if your intuition itself were knocking from the inside. And then there are the moments you dismiss as coincidences, until they happen too many times to ignore. You think of someone you haven't spoken to in years, and they call. You see the same symbol, the same sentence, the same image appearing in different places. A conversation you overhear seems to answer a question you never spoke aloud. A stranger's expression mirrors exactly what you're feeling inside. It's subtle, but unmistakable. The sense that life is no longer random. that something behind the scenes is trying to get your attention. You begin to feel watched, but not in a frightening way. More like being observed by something that knows you intimately. Your wounds, your fears, your hidden truths. You try to rationalize it. Maybe you're tired. Maybe it's stress. Maybe your mind is playing tricks on you. But deep down, you know it isn't. This isn't chaos. It isn't coincidence. It's communication. A language spoken not through words, but through symbols, timing, sensations, and small interruptions in your ordinary life. A language that doesn't shout, it nudges, it stirs, it pulls, it rearranges the world around you until you can no longer deny that something is reaching out. And the most startling part, you recognize the message even before you understand it. You feel it before you can explain it. Your soul reacts before your mind catches up. Because on some level, you've been waiting for this. Waiting for a sign. Waiting for confirmation that the emptiness you feel is not a mistake, but a signal. A quiet knocking from the inside of your own consciousness. And as these signs grow more frequent and more intense, a new question begins to rise, not from fear, but from the deepest part of your being. If all these experiences are messages, then what exactly are they leading me toward? There is a moment in every path of awakening when the world stops behaving the way you were taught it should. Not dramatically, not with flashes of lightning or voices from the sky, but with something far more subtle and far more powerful. It begins with one quiet truth that ancient teachers, místicos, filósofos e buscadores de muitas eras tentaram explicar, mas que só pode ser compreendido quando você mesmo o vivencia. The first great secret is this: your loss of joy is not a failure of emotion. It is a shift of consciousness, not the end of something precious, but the beginning of an inner reconfiguration that the mind cannot yet interpret. This is why nothing external seems to fix it. Joy doesn't return, not because it's gone forever, but because the version of you that once responded to it is dissolving. Ancient traditions called this moment many names: the desert of the soul, the turning of the inner wheel, the death of the old fire, the silence before illumination. Alan Watts used to say that the universe works in cycles of expansion and contraction, inhale and exhale, fullness and emptiness. The moment you stop feeling joy is not the diminishing of your spirit. It's the pause before the next expansion, the exhale before the new breath enters. But to the human mind, that pause feels like the world is falling apart. Why? Because the mind is addicted to stimulation, and the soul is not. The first secret reveals itself in the moment you feel your old motivations slipping away. Things you chased for years suddenly lose their color. Things that once thrilled you no longer touch you. And at first this feels like a betrayal, your own heart turning against you. But what is really happening is something few people ever understand. You are shedding the layer of identity that needed the world to entertain you. When the soul begins to expand, the nervous system can no longer be satisfied by the small sparks of ordinary pleasure. The dopamine-driven, surface-level highs become too thin, too predictable. Your inner world is no longer fed by the things that used to distract you. It's like a seed breaking open underground. From the outside, it looks like destruction, but from the inside, it is the first moment of life. This is the secret every ancient mystic tried to describe. Joy doesn't disappear, it transforms, and the mind interprets that transformation as loss. Think about the moon for a moment. When it turns dark in the sky, is it gone? Has it died? Lost its purpose? No. It entered a phase of invisibility to prepare for a new cycle of light. Your loss of joy is the same phenomenon, an inner new moon. Let's go deeper. When you begin to sense dreams that feel too real, emotions that appear out of nowhere, or a strange heaviness that isn't tiredness, Your spirit is signaling that you are entering what spiritual teachers call the corridor, a narrow passage between who you were and who you are becoming. Inside this corridor, joy cannot function the way it once did, because you're no longer meant to be moved by the outer world. You are being prepared to be moved by something inward. That's why the signs feel personal, almost whispered, because they are. Dreams intensify, sensitivity increases, old desires vanish, your own reflection feels foreign. You sense something watching you, not with judgment but recognition. This is not depression, not emptiness, not apathy. This is realignment. The first secret is that the universe withdraws joy, not to punish you, but to redirect you. It takes away what once satisfied you, so it can introduce what will truly nourish you. And just like a child who outgrows toys, you outgrow certain joys. That's not a loss, it's an evolution. But here's the part no one talks about. When this shift begins, your mind panics. It tries to resurrect old patterns. It wants you to crave what you used to crave. It wants life to feel normal again. But normal no longer fits you. Your soul is expanding faster than your mind can understand, and that is why these signs appear. Dreams, sensations, emptiness, disconnection. They are not symptoms, they are signals. Signals that the old self is dissolving and the new self has not yet taken form. If you've been feeling this, you are not behind, you are not broken. You are standing in the exact doorway where spiritual transformation begins. Before continuarmos, se esse conhecimento está fazendo sentido para você, considere curtir este vídeo e se inscrever no canal para fazer parte desta comunidade. Um círculo de buscadores que caminham pelo mesmo silêncio, pela mesma transição, pelo mesmo despertar. Aqui você não está sozinho. Now there is a second secret, one even more hidden, more challenging, and more illuminating than the first. A secret that explains why this inner shift feels so frightening, and what it is preparing you to receive. And to understand it, we must explore what happens when the soul begins demanding honesty from the life you've been living. There is a story I rarely share, not because it's dramatic or filled with miracles, but because it is quiet. So quiet that for years I didn't understand it myself. Yet it was this story that taught me what it truly means when joy disappears, when life loses its taste, when the world becomes strangely silent. It began during a season when everything in my life seemed perfectly normal from the outside. I had work, friends, passions, routines. I was functional, as people like to say. But something inside me had begun to dim, slowly, quietly, like a candle burning low without anyone noticing. At first I brushed it aside. Maybe I was tired. Maybe I needed a vacation. Maybe it was just a phase, but the signs kept growing. I remember one morning waking up to a day that should have been beautiful. Sunlight spilling through the curtains, the smell of coffee in the kitchen, the familiar hum of life around me, and yet I felt nothing, absolutely nothing. It was as if my emotions had been unplugged during the night. I stood there staring at the window, waiting for myself to come back. But the connection didn't return. And that's when the strange things began. Dreams that were more vivid than waking life. Dreams of walking through endless fields of golden light, where I felt a presence beside me, silent, patient, familiar. I woke with tears on my face, not from sadness, but from a longing I couldn't name. During the day, I felt a pressure in the center of my chest, like a quiet ache that wasn't physical. Sometimes I felt sudden chills, even in the warmth of the afternoon. Sometimes I felt a pull towards solitude so strong it frightened me. But the moment that changed everything happened on a cold evening in early autumn. I had gone for a walk, hoping movement would shake off the heaviness inside me. The streets were quiet, scattered with fallen leaves that crunched under my shoes. I remember how the air smelled of wood smoke, how distant voices echoed from open windows, how the sky above me seemed unusually low, as if bending close to listen. Halfway through the walk, I stopped near an old stone wall covered in ivy. I don't know why I stopped there. I wasn't tired. I wasn't thinking of anything specific. I simply felt held, as if the entire atmosphere had shifted around me. The noise of the world receded, and suddenly it was just me, my breath, and that strange silence that had been following me for months. And then something happened. Not a vision, not a supernatural event, but something internal, something unmistakable, a realization, a clarity sharp enough to still my entire body. I understood in one single moment that I had not lost joy. I had lost distraction. Every pleasure I used to chase, every excitement I used to depend on, every rush of emotion I mistook for meaning. I saw them for what they were, noise that had kept me from hearing something far quieter and far more real. Standing there by that old wall with cold air brushing against my face, I felt the weight on my chest loosen. Not because joy had returned, but because I finally understood that something deeper was awakening. A kind of presence that didn't depend on excitement or stimulation. It wasn't happiness. It wasn't relief. It was something with no name. A quiet, steady beingness, like the sensation of stepping into your own skin after living slightly outside it for years. From that day on, the emptiness didn't feel like a punishment. It felt like an invitation. The dreams continued, the odd sensations continued, but they no longer frightened me. They felt like guidance, subtle, intimate, unmistakable. I started noticing moments I had never seen before. The way sunlight rests on a table, the texture of silence before dawn, the hum of my own breath, the pulse of calm beneath every thought. Nothing brought me joy in the old sense, but life itself began to feel like a quiet miracle. And here's the part I want you to hold on to. This transition didn't make my life louder. It made everything clearer. It taught me that joy doesn't disappear. It deepens. It descends from the surface of life into the core of who you are. And to reach that depth, the old joys must fade. They must lose their power. They must fall silent. Only then can the new form of joy emerge, the one that doesn't depend on anything outside you. If you felt something similar, strange dreams, sudden numbness, unexplained heaviness, a pull towards solitude. If you've sensed the world shifting around you in ways you can't explain. If joy has slipped away while something deeper waits in the silence, I want to know. Tell me in the comments what signs or experiences you've already lived. Tell me the moment you noticed something was changing inside you. I read every message, and some of them I may share in upcoming videos, because your story may be the voice someone else needs to hear. And as for what comes next, there is a pattern behind all these signs, one that most people never recognize until it's too late. A pattern that explains why these experiences appear right before your life begins to transform in ways you could never predict. If the first secret revealed that the disappearance of joy is a shift of consciousness, then the second secret is even more unsettling and liberating. It explains why the emptiness doesn't go away when you try to fix it, and why life feels strangely quiet, even when everything is technically fine. The second great secret is this: when joy disappears, your soul is trying to separate what is real from what is borrowed. All your life, without noticing, you learn to feel through the emotions of others, through expectations, through habits, through noise. You felt happy because someone approved of you. You felt excited because the world told you that excitement meant progress. You felt alive because something outside you was loud enough to distract you from the silence inside. But when that borrowed emotional system collapses, you begin to face your true inner landscape, unfiltered, untouched, unsoftened. This is why the absence of joy feels like standing in a place with no walls, no familiar markings, no guidance. You're no longer guided by external excitement. You are being pushed toward internal truth. And this truth has a sign most people experience without recognizing it. The sign is the sudden inability to pretend. You can no longer pretend you enjoy the things you used to. You can no longer pretend certain relationships still nourish you. You can no longer force interest, enthusiasm, or passion. You feel physically drained when you try to fake it. This is not laziness. It is not apathy. It is the soul refusing to participate in illusions. Ancient teachers said that once the soul awakens to authenticity, even slightly, it rejects anything that pulls it away from its real path. That rejection doesn't come with fireworks. It comes with silence, exhaustion, disinterest, and a strange sensation of being done with things that once defined you. But here is the part that becomes practical, something you can apply immediately. The technique, the three-point alignment of truth. This technique helps you distinguish whether you are experiencing genuine spiritual awakening or emotional fatigue. And it also helps you understand what your soul is trying to tell you. Find a quiet moment today. Just a few seconds are enough. Close your eyes, breathe once, slowly. Then ask yourself 3 simple questions. 1. Is this desire real or is it memory? Most people chase feelings from the past. They want the same spark, the same excitement, the same meaning they once felt. But the soul never moves backward. If the desire belongs to a past version of you, your body will feel heavy. If it's real, your chest opens. If it's borrowed, your chest tightens. 2. Does this give me energy or drain me? This is the most honest compass you have. If a person, activity, or place drains you, even if it should make you happy, your soul is signaling disalignment. You don't need to know why. The body knows before the mind understands. 3. Am I forcing this? Authentic paths expand effortlessly. False paths require force, self-pushing, or emotional pretending. If you have to convince yourself, justify it, or push yourself, it is not aligned. If something makes you feel heavier afterward, your soul is withdrawing permission. When you begin using these 3 points of alignment, you'll start noticing something remarkable. The emptiness becomes directional. It starts pointing somewhere. It begins separating people, habits, and desires that no longer match who you are becoming. This is not punishment. It is precision. It is your soul saying, I cannot grow inside the life you built for the person you used to be. And this is where most people panic. They feel something dissolving, but they don't yet know what is trying to emerge. So they cling to the old joys, the old routines, the old identities, and the emptiness only intensifies. But when you stop fighting the silence, something shifts, something soft, something subtle, something unmistakably new. You begin to sense an inner intelligence guiding you, not with words, but with sensations, clarity, and small, unexpected moments of peace. Even if nothing in your life changes externally, you start to feel the faint outline of a new self forming beneath the surface. Like the first whisper of dawn, or the first hint of warmth before sunrise. And here is where the true mystery begins. The second secret teaches you how to recognize the shift. But there is a third secret, a deeper, older, almost hidden truth that explains why this awakening begins in the exact moment when life feels most lifeless. A secret that connects emptiness to destiny. Before we continue, if these teachings are resonating deeply with you, I invite you to subscribe and join this community, a circle of people who are awakening to the same inner call, walking the same path of quiet transformation. Your presence strengthens this space because the next revelation is the one almost no one talks about, the sign that appears only when the soul is preparing you for the most profound transformation of your life. There is a moment in every awakening when the soul stops whispering and begins calling, not softly, not gently, but with a clarity so profound that it cuts through every layer of confusion, fear, and illusion you once carried as truth. This is the moment of the third secret, the deepest and most mysterious sign of all, when nothing brings you joy anymore. It is because your soul is preparing you for a higher purpose that your old identity could not survive. This is not poetic exaggeration. It is a spiritual law present in every ancient teaching. Mystics said it this way: when God wants to transform a life, he removes every false light so the true one can appear. Quantum physicists describe something similar: systems entering a phase of collapse before reorganizing at a higher frequency. Esoteric Christianity called it the sacred emptiness. Eastern teachings called it the dissolution of the self. Modern psychology calls it ego death. But they all point to the same revelation. Your emptiness is not a void, it is a womb. Something is gestating inside you, something too vast, too luminous, too radically alive to fit inside the person you used to be. And before it rises, everything built on old foundations must fall away. That is why the world tastes different. That is why your emotions shifted. That is why nothing satisfies you. That is why you feel pulled into silence, into isolation, into stillness. Because you are standing in the most sacred doorway a human can enter, the death of the old consciousness and the birth of the true one. Let me show you something powerful. Something that explains everything you've been feeling. When a star collapses before creating new light, it doesn't fade gently. It contracts violently, folding in on itself. The collapse is not destruction, it is concentration, energy gathering itself to burst forward in a new form. Your soul is doing the same. The lack of joy is not the collapse of life. It is the gathering of light, preparing you to shine in a way you never have before. This is why everything feels muted. Joy hasn't vanished. It is being drawn inward, condensed, purified, intensified. The joy you used to know was superficial, temporary, external. The joy emerging now is deep, stable, unshakable, a joy that cannot be taken from you. But to receive this joy, your old emotional system must be dismantled. Everything that depended on external validation, everything that fed your past identity, everything you used as escape, distraction, noise, and that dismantling feels like death because, in a way, it is. Not the death of life, the death of illusion. A spiritual teacher once said, before God gives you new eyes, he blinds you to the old world. That is what you're living, that blindness, that quiet, that strange emotional numbness. It is not punishment, it is preparation. And here is the part almost no one knows. The revelation behind the revelation. When your joy goes silent, your intuition begins to speak. You start sensing things before they happen. You feel truth in your body before your mind can explain it. You become allergic to lies, noise, and superficiality. Your heart becomes a tuning fork, vibrating only to what is real. This is the real awakening. Not visions, not fireworks, not miracles. It is the sharpening of inner perception, a return to alignment, a remembering of who you actually are beneath the layers of who you were told to be. And as this inner perception strengthens, you will notice something astonishing. People who once fit into your life will feel distant. Habits you once called comfort now feel poisonous. Dreams you once chased no longer belong to you. It is as if you are shedding an entire identity, an identity that cannot cross the threshold with you. This is the moment where many feel lost, unsure, terrified, but also strangely ready for what is coming, ready for the new self rising, ready for the purpose that has been waiting behind every coincidence, every dream, every haunting silence. But before I reveal the final layer of this transformation, before we enter the heart of the prophecy behind this spiritual collapse, I want to ask you something sincerely. If this journey is resonating with you, if you feel these truths inside your bones, if this content has supported your awakening, please subscribe to this channel and like this video. This work is done with passion, not profit. There are no sponsors, no ads, no hidden motives, only the desire to guide, heal, and support those who are awakening. Your subscription keeps this community alive. Your like strengthens this circle of seekers walking the same unseen path. Now, the greatest mystery is still ahead, because there is one more sign, a sign so deep, so rare, so profound, that almost no one recognizes it until it begins reshaping their entire destiny. And it is that final sign that your soul is about to reveal next. There comes a moment in every spiritual journey when all the scattered pieces finally begin to align, not in the mind, but in the heart. When you look back at the dreams, the emptiness, the numbness, the subtle signs, and the overwhelming silence, and you realize that none of it was random, none of it was meaningless, none of it was a punishment. It was preparation. Every moment when joy slipped through your hands, every night when you felt disconnected from yourself, every day when life felt strangely hollow, all of it was shaping you, gently but firmly, into someone capable of perceiving life not through noise, but through essence, not through stimulation, but through awareness, not through excitement, but through truth. This entire journey, the fading of your old joys, the collapse of your old illusions, the rise of subtle intuition, has been calling you back to yourself, back to the center of your own being, back to the consciousness you carried long before the world taught you who to be. You were never empty, you were being refined. You were never lost, you were being redirected. You were never broken, you were being rebuilt in silence. And now, as you stand at the end of this path, this chapter of awakening, you can feel the shift inside you. Not a loud one, not a dramatic one, but a steady, grounded recognition that life is no longer what it was. Because you are no longer who you were. Everything you lived until now was leading you here, to this awareness, to this clarity, to this softness, to this inner knowing that joy was not meant to disappear. It was meant to change form. The old joy depended on circumstances. The new joy depends on presence. The old joy came from the world. The new joy rises from within. And the signs that once frightened you, the silence, the dreams, the strange sensations, the disinterest, were not symptoms of an ending. They were invitations to a beginning. They were the universe whispering, "Come home to yourself." You see, awakening isn't about acquiring something new. It's about remembering what was always there. It's about removing the layers that kept you numb, distracted, lost in the noise. It's about stepping into life as it truly is, raw, simple, quiet, and profoundly alive. And as this new awareness grows, you realize something extraordinary. You were never walking toward the light. You were walking with it. Now, before we close this journey together, I want to invite you to do something meaningful, something that anchors this moment into your reality. Write a comment with your name and your city. Not just as engagement, but as a declaration. I am awakening, I am present, I am part of this path. I read every comment, and in the next video, I will personally greet some of you by name. This is more than a channel, it is a community. An invisible circle of people awakening together, step by step, breath by breath. And if this message touched you, if something inside you shifted even slightly, if you felt recognized, understood, held, like this video and subscribe to the channel. Not for algorithms, not for numbers, but because this space is built with passion, not profit. Every subscription strengthens this sanctuary we're creating together. A place for souls who are awakening quietly, deeply, authentically. And now, as you close this chapter and begin living from this new awareness, carry this truth with you. When joy disappears, consciousness awakens. And when consciousness awakens, life begins again. There is one more step your soul is preparing you for, one more unfolding waiting beneath the surface of your everyday life. But that, my friend, is the mystery only you can discover.